Well, good morning. I appreciate y'all joining me today. As we've gone over the last couple of weeks, we've gone through the laws and how they interact with one another. Today, we're going over one of my favorite principles. It's the principle of perseverance. So this one right here, I try to live on a daily basis because we find obstacles that are put in front of us every day. And sometimes those obstacles stop people from moving forward on their path. But applying this principle in your life and knowing where this principle really resonates with you can help you overcome those obstacles and allow you to keep moving forward. So, as we've talked about over the last, oh my goodness, 6 weeks, we've talked about the law of the architect, where you are, planning and you are designing your organization. And then we talked about how the law of exchange is where you're exchanging time with others to allow you to be the architect, but allow you to delegate other tasks so you can work on the business and not in the business. And then we looked at how the law of open cycles tied into that. Whereas if you're trying to do too many things as the architect, you're just bogged down. You're not able to really focus on the vision. And then we got into the principle of present, where if you're not fully present in what you're focusing on, it makes it difficult to look at how to move forward. And I saw a great illustration yesterday. I took a screenshot of it. It's on my phone, and it showed a clock, 12, 0 or 1 through 12, and it showed it all. It says a lot of people look at this, and then it carved out like a slice of pie where it was focused on the three. It says, where you focus is where you find the most success. And I thought that was really, really relevant in that principle of present. And then we got into the law of hindrance. I'm sorry, the law of separation and the law of hindrance. The law of separation, I really thought tied in to the law of exchange and how that we looked at that. And if you're not able to separate one from the other, you can create a criminal exchange, or you can be a part of that yourself internally. But now in the principle of perseverance, this right here, the law actually talks about and gives a great illustration of a consultant coming into a business and interviewing people saying, what do you want? And people were talking about, I don't want to get fired. No, that's something that's tied to the job. And then they bared down a little bit more. What do you want? Well, the person said, well, I want to be a good husband. I want to be a good father. Okay, well, that's for them. What do you want? And after going down the path, it's like a lot of people lost focus of what they want or what gives them passion. Some people, that passion may be photography. Some people, it may be baking. Some people, it may just be taking a walk or drawing. But if we're not doing the things that feed us or feed our passions, it's going to be hard to persevere because we're constantly just showing up and doing a task. And I don't think any of us are wired that way, just to show up and do a task without a meaningful reward. But that meaningful reward is not given to you, it's by others, it's earned. And that's going back to the law of exchange. But for yourself, the reward is making sure that you have the time to draw, take photos, bake, whatever it is that your passion is, so you can reconnect and say, I've found the time to do what I love. And that feeds your soul, that gives you the energy, the drive to go through things as they get hard. And that's something that I struggle with. And I say this is something, I deal with every day in the principle of perseverance, is because for me, I've always said jokingly, I said, if I could find a way to afford my golf game and have a cigar and a scotch every day and not have to work, I'd be a completely content man, you know. But, now it's, maybe the scotch has fallen off, but I'm still about the cigars and the golf. So what gives you passion can change. This is not your vision. This is your passion, which feeds your tank with the energy to move forward. So it's one of those things that you have to look at on a recurring basis. I really don't think your passions change dramatically throughout time, but I do think there is an adjustment of what our values are. But if you're married, if you're in a relationship, if you have kids, if you have parents that you're looking after, those things are things that you love and that they can provide a lot of benefit to you. But is that your passion? Because if your passions are not met and you're robbing from your relationships because you're just drained because of your job, think of it as a triangle. It's almost an equilateral triangle. Is if one's out of balance, someone's going to feel it one way or the other, whether it be your job, your employer, whether it be your employees, whether it be your family, or whether it be that passion of yours. But if you keep that in balance and constantly look at that, I think you can move through time. And it's funny, before we started recording, Teresa was talking about how something was in her head. Um, and I think of something that popped in my head when I think of the triangle. There's a cartoon. I have two young children, 8 and 5, and one of their favorite movies is Boss Baby. And in the very beginning of it, it talks about Tim and his mom and dad, and it says the strongest shape in the universe is a triangle. So, and when you think about that, you look at uh some of our money, it has a triangle on it. You look at the pyramids, how they've withstood the test of time, and what shape are they? But I think for me, if you look at that and think about that and put that in some form of fashion and write out what you love, what your job is, and what your passion is. And then go back to the law of exchange, making sure you're not robbing from one to give to the other. And that's an internal exchange. Or you could look at that of the law of separation, how you have to truly separate these from one another before you really find that principle of perseverance. Because like I work almost weekly with my neighbor. He's a high performer, high net worth earner. But every day that I talk to him, he's like, I'm burnt out. I'm burnt out. It's just, I don't, I'm just tired. And he doesn't do manual labor. He works with a team, but he's just mentally exhausted. But the days or the weekends that we go and play golf, or we're able to have a cigar because he has some of the same passions I do, or when because he's really good at working with wood, when he's able to do those things, his energy level peaks up, and then for a couple days after, he's like, hey, let's do this. Hey, you want to go have dinner? You want to go do this? His energy's there. Where normally he's trying to be in bed by 9, he's up till 11. And it's amazing, by just doing one task that feeds your soul, feeds your passion, can give you that energy to move forward. But if you're constantly getting bogged down with the daily monotony of things, it can wear on you. And there's I'm gonna pull it up real quick. And there's people that have heard this, maybe, but maybe have not. But it's a great quote that I learned from my neighbor, and I've shared it before in past talks. And it came from someone that I really look up to, and I think has done well in his life. So as I pull it up, I'm going to tell you, this quote comes from Warren Buffett, not Jimmy Buffett's brother. This is Warren Buffett. He's a little bit more successful financially.
So he's done okay.
Yeah, he's doing all right. But I think this right here ties into this principle of perseverance. They say the chains of habit are too light to be felt until they are too heavy to be broken. The chains you put around yourself now have enormous consequences as you go through life. And that was a quote by Warren Buffett. And I think that's
Matt, can you read that again? Sorry to
absolutely,
interrupt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, or can you post it in our group chat later too?
Absolutely. So I'm gonna do this. Um, there we go. They say the chains of habit are too light to be felt. They are until they are too heavy to be broken. The change you put around yourself now have enormous consequences as you go through life. So I think that right there helps encapsulate, gives that 30,000 foot view of what this law is talking about. It helps drill down and just gives a great imagery, because I think as children or anything, we've put on things. Like I know Cherie's up in Canada where it might get a little colder than it does here in Atlanta. But clothing, I mean, you put on a shirt. All right, that's not bad. Put on 2 shirts. Okay, that's okay. You put on 3. And then by the time you've put on all your layers, you're, several pounds heavier. It's not, you didn't put on weight, you just put on clothes. So it's an imagery. Not maybe a great imagery, but I think with the chains, the things that we do on a daily basis, we're just going through the habits. And we've heard in the alliance that, our mind has these grooves, and we have to carve out new grooves, but we have to do it in a consistent manner and try things in a new manner. But if we're not feeding our passions and going back to those things that are our passions and the things that we love, again, I say family, it really steals from how we can show up and perform. And if we're going to be the architect, we have to perform better than anyone else. We have to lead the charge. It's not that we want our team to have the same drive to be a business owner. That may not be their drive. Their drive may be make $100,000 a year and have a good work-life balance. But you're giving them the opportunity to elevate themselves and create generational wealth for their family as you're doing that for yourself. But I think it's so important to live this principle every single day. And it's hard. I know it's hard to get up and do something in a consistent manner. But if we're not willing to start and saying today is day 1 and start working on day 2 and then day 3, we're never going to get to day 5 unless we start with day 1. So we have to constantly put forth the work so that we can persevere as things get hard. And when things get hard, we're able to say, you know what? This is a chapter. This is not the story. This is just a chapter. This is just a paragraph within the story that I'm writing. Because we've all read books. We've all seen movies. And it's where that conflict happens is where people get bought in to the story. They can see themselves in that story in some form or fashion, whether it be, something like sci-fi with Star Wars or, the Harry Potter films. There's always a conflict. But if you stay the path and you know where your passions are, you can overcome those things and move forward. But so many times in life, we're trying to move past those things and say, we are above conflict in our own life, whether it be an external conflict or an internal conflict. I think we're so wired to try to avoid it. But I've said on these calls in the past, I'd rather resonate or connect with people that have, fallen down, gotten up multiple times, because I know their will to succeed supersedes their failures. And that's a great place to be when you're going through life. But again, that's how we connect with people. And I think it's really, really relevant in what we're going through today, because there's so many distractions that we have, but what keeps us present? And there's so many things that are said about being present, but there are so many different things out there that are trying to keep us from being present. Going back to the principle of presence, but if we're not present, even in our passions, we're robbing time from ourselves. And that principle of perseverance. So I know there's a lot to really unpack there, but I think it's meaningful that we go through, like we talked about with the law of open cycles, is we go back, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and just constantly make sure that our passions are giving us the drive, the energy to persevere when things get hard. Because it's not that life will not get hard, but it's what happens when life gets hard. How do we get through it? And that's the most important thing for us to ask as entrepreneurs, as people that are looking to achieve generational wealth. So I'll pause there. See if the lovely audience, this is the best looking audience I've had in a while, having comments or replies of how they see this tying into the other laws, or how this resonates with you today in the chapter that you're in.
Go ahead, Teresa.
No, you go ahead. I'm still thinking.
Well, and it's fine if you don't have anything, it's perfectly fine. I mean, we're recording this. We're going to put it on a private channel so you can go back and look at it, but only you and the rest of this group will be able to see it. Because I will have control of who gets access to it. So no one will see it unless you are showing it on your phone or you've logged in. So, but if you have something you want to share, that's fine. If not, that's perfectly fine as well.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I've got thoughts. The laws always get me going, and what I'm finding, and I may have shared this before, is that as I learn more and more about the laws, I find a situation in life, and I'm starting to say, "Oh, that's the law of the two rabbits," or "Oh," and I'm talking to another bellwether member, like, "Oh, that's the law of the architect," whatever. So yeah, I have always lots to say about the laws. This one, I mean, just the idea of perseverance for me, and tenacity is the only reason why I'm still here. But I love the perspective that it has on finding your passion, because that's what's going to keep you going.
Mhm.
So what I've discovered in the last 6 years of being in business is that I do have a passion of art. I love drawing, I love painting, but there seems to be a mental block somewhere around that it seems that my passion is not valid, if you will. There's so many other things, Sheree, you should be doing. You don't have time for that. So that's an interesting thing, because I know I love it. The other thing is that we talked about last time, which I'm still mulling around a lot in my head these days, is if you have financial problems, it's either a lack of trust or a lack of discipline. And so I'm really focusing on that lack of discipline thing. Because like I said, last week, I am a disciplined person, but why is it that I'm still having some trouble? So I spend a lot of time on my phone at night because I'm just so tired. And so for me, drawing and painting is another thing to do. So then I also discovered that my another passion of mine is seeing people that are stuck in a mindset of poverty to move into a place of sustainability, and from a place of sustainability to a place of abundance. These 3 points along this line. And so, because that's my why. Like, I figured out that when things get really hard, because every day as a developer, it's hard. You start with 10 problems, and if you finish the day with 6, that's a good day. Like, that's really, really good. So I'm always every day solving problems in my business. And then when you've got 5 kids and a community, you're solving problems there as well. So I've discovered that my passion actually is to see other people achieve their dreams. So I think that I want to see women that are and families that are stuck in poverty. I want to see them have a safe place to live and for their children. I want to see them have a safe place to play outside. So I want them to have a safe neighborhood. And that I discovered actually is my passion. That's what gets me out of bed in the morning, because I got to experience that once. I got to see a friend that was otherwise going to be on the street. I was able to find her, like I personally bought her a home and she became a tenant, but she was also a really, really good friend. And so to see her go into that place for the very first time and to go, Cherie, like she was speechless. Like she went from room to room and she was like, this is my own. Like, I don't have to share this dryer and washer with someone. Like, I don't have to share a washroom with someone. Like, this was blowing her mind. And so that has always stuck with me. And that is my why. I think that's my passion. That's why I get out of bed in the morning, because I know that if I can do that for one person, what happens when I hold hands with my team that's also passionate about that, and we do that for an entire neighborhood. So I've discovered really that's my perseverance. But I also just wanted to share that last piece where I'm still just kind of struggling. I had a little bit of a win. I got rid of my YouTube app this week. So I'm not watching stupid YouTube videos as easily. It's weird. It's so weird just to have to go online if I want to see something specifically, do some research on YouTube rather than just having that app. So I'm down to one social.
Yeah.
Just LinkedIn, and everything else is off my phone. So
Well,
anyways, those are my thoughts about perseverance.
and that's the thing, when we look at, I'd have to go back and try to find it. But with smartphones and everything else, it's robbing us of our time. And like I've pulled out or been going through my attic, and I've pulled out stuff that I did in high school and outside of high school where I was drawing. There's 2 local restaurants here in where I live that have stuff that I did in high school still hanging there 24 years later. And I used to do like metal work and pushing and bending of metal to make it like emboss where it was almost 3D. So I did things like that there. And I used to be really good at portraits and just drawing landscapes. And I got away from that. And I tell my children every day, I said, draw. I was like, it doesn't matter. Do you like it? That's all that matters. Because as we get further into the laws, we're not going to get into it in this group, but the law of the lock. 80%. Get it out there. But so many times we're looking at, is it perfect? And it doesn't have to be perfect. If you like it, someone else will resonate with it. I've seen high-end art museums with a solid white canvas that people have paid 7 figures for. I'm like, it's white. Someone put white paint on it, and someone paid because the artist that did it painted it white. It's not because it was good or it took any skill, but it's how people interpret it. So everyone's going to interpret your work differently, but there's an audience for everything that we do. There's no doubt about that. There's an audience for everything that we do. As I said on Mario Londarati, the Freedom Architects podcast, I said, we do not have a unique idea. It's not to discount anybody. And then he talked about there being a conscious plane of knowledge, whether you're here in America or if you're in Europe or you're in India. Someone else is having that same idea. But it's what's your leverage position to get it out there. But there's an audience that's going to go, holy cow, that's amazing. But once we realize that, and we're able to make ourselves vulnerable to say, here it is, because there's a lot of good and bad. There's always going to be that. I don't want to say a 70-30 or an 80-20. I think it's a 50-50 mix. But when you put it out there, the people that truly love you and want to see you succeed will support it, whether they understand it or not, but they will support you. So it's just amazing how we can do that, but just keep pushing forward. Vince, what's up, buddy? It's good to see you.
Yeah, my apologies. I'm in Central Time Zone, and I was like, I wish my computers and everything like switched over and actually, said, hey, this meeting's going to be a little bit earlier now. But I apologize. I was like, wow, I was on Eastern Time. But back in Omaha, selling an empty house this month. And Cherie, I thought what you were talking about, having a passion for something. My wife started Sacred Activism Community, and I love the definition of sacred activism because it's a transforming force for compassion and action. And that's Andrew Harvey who did that. But one thing he did, and you talked about your community, it takes Andrew Harvey of the Institute of Sacred Activism. He said it takes 5 to 8 people centered around a passion point or a cause to make a difference that can have transforming effects like across the world. So, 1 or 2 or 3, we can talk about it all day and we can do some good. But if you start to really get that 5 to 8 number, then you'll really see a transforming change nationally, globally. So that I like that how you kind of add that community in there. Not only what gets you out of bed, but find 5 others that have that same passion that gets them out of bed to help the disadvantaged women in poverty. I worked with Sol Asina, a bellwether in Argentina, and we decided to rebrand our website beacon4today.com, the number 4, beacon4today.com. And she did a wonderful job. It's just motion video. It has a cause, but I knew that every dollar I sent her way, and it was fair. We both were out trying to out abundant exchange each other, but that was cute about that. When 2 bellwethers do an exchange, you're like, no, I'm gonna abundantly exchange you. No, she did wonderfully, and I just knew every dollar going to Argentina was going to a ridiculous nation state with out of control, rampant inflation. So my dollar was worth probably $10 to her. So I didn't consider that in the exchange at all, just thinking about it just now. But every time you talk to her, she talks about employing women, teaching women technology, teaching them how to do what it is that they do. And I was just that heart to help women in poverty, single women, single mothers, learn a technology, get a better place in life. That is something that I rally around too as I start nonprofits or businesses for women, veterans, minorities, or the disabled. So just wanted to kind of jump on that, what Cherie said.
Yeah, absolutely. Cynthia, Vince, thank you so much for joining us. I am gonna let you know, I'm sure you popped up. We are recording this, so I'm gonna put this in a private YouTube channel so that Nathaniel and Renita can see it as well. So it will be only available to this group. So we can go back and watch this one. This has been the only one that's been recorded. It might be the only one that gets recorded, but but what we have talked about earlier is just, how the principle of perseverance is something I have to live every single day, because being an entrepreneur and, yes, have had success, but I don't look at success I have as dictating who I am. I'm always trying to earn it. And I don't know if that's due to me seeing it almost every single day at my son's dojo, but I look at this group here, and yes, y'all came here because you're like, hey, Matt Maven's offering this training. What can we get out of this? But for me, I'm looking to earn people's respect, trust, and admiration, not for me, but for what the Bellwether's trying to do and trying to build that admiration for one another. Now that's a good me. That's a good me statement, a why statement, a statement of passion, because I'm always showing up to try to earn that on a daily basis. People may want to give that out, but if you're not willing to show up and try to earn that every single day, the love and respect of others, because I think a lot of, I would say most people in the Bellwether, they show up into a conversation with trust. There's trust there. There's admiration there because you're in the Bellwether. And we all got invited to the Bellwether because of a unique principle that you may not have found yet or understand why you got invited in. But if we're not showing up every single day to try to garner that for the next day and the next day and the next day, then and I said it last week and I've said it before, ability, humility. Always have your humility trump your ability. And for me, and like for my principle of presence or perseverance is I want to play golf as many times as possible. I was telling someone last week, they're like, well, how many times you played this year? I said, I don't know, about 60, 65 times. We're like, what? That's more than once a week. I was like, yeah. But that I'm not good at golf. And I get out there on the golf course and I curse myself. I'm like, what the heck? But I hit one or two good shots out of 80 or 90 shots. I go, that's why I'm out here. And if you look at that on a scale, that's less than 10%. I'm hitting great shots. But when you do that, it's like, it's that admiration, it's that affirmation that you're doing something right. But there's so many things that you can do wrong. Like when I played golf last week, I hit 4 shots in the fairway, but I still shot below 90. And it's because my second shot was pure. My second shot was where it needed to be. So, and that's in life, we're not always going to hit the mark on the first, but we keep showing up and keep looking towards our goals and how to get to our goals with all the obstacles in our path, how we get there, and we can tell the story clearly, concisely to others. People are going to resonate and say, I've seen those same hurdles in my own path. You overcame it. I may not do it the same way because, I think this way and you think this way and I'm this type of personality and whatever it may be, but I can see how I can make that happen. And then it gives you that passion, that perseverance to say, I can get over this hurdle. I can achieve anything. And that's a great place to be. But if we're not living these principles, and it's funny, I have it written down in front of me, the 10 laws or 8 laws and 2 principles. And I think if we were have recorded the principle of present, I would have probably said this was pretty popular for me as well. But it seems to be the principles that I resonate with maybe more so than the laws. I don't know if it's because of the word principle versus laws. I don't know. But for me, like I always want to be present for my kids because I love my kids. My kids, I will do anything for. They are not my passion. I will support my children in their passions. I will love my children unconditionally. I will be disappointed in my children when they make bad decisions, just like my parents were, and even my colleagues, they've been disappointed in some of the decisions I've made. That's love. What we're looking at is our passions, because those that love us will support us. Our passions will give us the internal fortitude to get over the hurdles, to see our entrepreneurial goals and our vision to completion. But I'm going to digress there for a little bit.
Oh, hey, Matt, just to, you're talking a lot about I've actually stumbled across referring people to your media kit link 3 clients this week, because I was like listening to a client, seeing where they are, they're kind of at a plateau. I'm like, you may need to do a media kit. So I've used your media kit, and I'd be happy if anyone else on the call has a media kit to get your link. I challenged my colleague, let's find 10 media kit examples out there, because what you're talking about, as you were talking, I was like, oh, that's his media kit. That's his media kit. And to go back to what you just said and maybe review your own media kit, because, maybe you can keep refining it. But I've used it as an example because, where can you go? Why wait around for Wikipedia to write a page about you because you're so famous, or someone, how do you get on Wikipedia? Well, someone else has to write it. Well, write your own media kit, make it look like Wikipedia, and don't worry about it, right? Drive on. But your media kit really says almost what you just said. And it also allows podcast interviewers, you got the 10 questions at the bottom that they could throw you softballs during a podcast interview or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's my challenge too, is like, okay, I need a media kit. Who am I? And can I say it in a page? And can I give examples, testimonials, TED Talks, YouTube videos that really demonstrate that whole package?
Yeah.
But just wanted to kind of give that feedback to you, because you didn't digress. It was the media kit that really can summarize what you just said as well.
Well, I mean, I appreciate you looking at it. And to spotlight a couple other people, Michael Markowitz, our friend or CPA, our fellow coin carrier, out of New York. He has his media kit. It's michaelmarkowitzmedia.com. Carol Carpenter has one. That if you look in the WhatsApp group, you might probably be able to find it. Ira Bowman has one. I think it's Ira Bowman Digital Media. I think it might be on his LinkedIn page. And also Travis Johnson. All absolutely amazing people. And I could go on and on about each and every one of those people, just how amazing they are. But, the thing that I love about each and every single one of them is I know some of the hurdles that they've overcome. It makes me love them even more. It's not their successes that made me love them. It's what made them human, and how they didn't allow a circumstance or situation to hold them down. And that for me is living the principle of perseverance, is because they found what that is. And I'm not going to speak to what their passions are, because I'm going to dilute the crap out of it, which is not fair to them. But I think with that, when we look at how we truly make an impact, it's, knowing what that is and not diluting that. And Cynthia and Vince, I said it just before y'all came on. Think of an equilateral triangle, all 3 equal sides: passion, love of family and friends, and then your vision. And write out what those are. Because if you're robbing from your passions to get to your business, or taking from your family to do to your passion or this, you're out of balance. And something will give at some point, but try to make sure you're looking at that. And it may be different today than it is 6 months from now. I don't think there's going to be a lot of deviations in that. As Nathaniel so eloquently said when we were talking about the law of separation, our vision, and then our ability to adapt and adjust as circumstances come up. So those are things that we have to look at, but if we can keep those in balance and get the support team around us, and talk about your passions, because like there are people in the alliance that if I have an opportunity to play golf or we're in the same area, golf is on the first thing on our to-do list. Before we do anything else, we're playing golf. And again, we may not be great at it, but we're going to play golf. And that just allows us, it frees up my mind to think more creatively. Now, where it used to be, I thought creatively and then got on the golf course. Now I find it one feeds the other. And those creativity in my business is, I tell people now I think more about my business between 6 p.m. and midnight. That's when I'm most on when it comes to my business. And I'm out there networking and doing what I do to build my business. Not the business I'm working in, but my business. Because there's a difference between your vision and your business versus working in someone else's. Even though I might give the same time and effort to that, but when we're looking at our goals at creating generational wealth, we have to find those leverage positions, and we always have to make sure that we're giving of equal time to that. So going back to the law of exchange, we're not creating a criminal exchange, we're creating an abundance of exchange. Yes, Cynthia.
So my apologies for jumping on late, but I'm so glad I did. I love the few points that you just raised and the comments from the group. But I wanted to share something that when I was reading this principle, it re-energized something that Dan shared in one of the sessions that he did, training sessions he did. And he was talking about, how we set goals and whatnot. And he shifted it to actually the word promise. And that was so powerful for me, because so many times, I think about goals as, we're making goals and around our passion and our business and our life. And that was such a head thing for me. But as soon as he shifted it to the word promise, it became a heart thing. And it's like, oh, okay, no, when I write this down as what I intend to do, and I make a promise to myself, all of a sudden it took a deeper root. And so to me, it coupled the principle of perseverance to a promise around my passion. And so putting those three things together, it just, so I wanted to share that because it made a huge shift for me from just the headspace of setting goals and, going out and the willpower of making it happen and working hard to get there and all that stuff. It shifted it to something so much deeper, that there's I'm worth making a promise to and keeping that promise.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I look at that and I cannot remember, with all the amazing people that we have in the alliance and the amazing conversations that I've been blessed to have. I don't know if it was Mary Lynn or Aaron or Dan, one of the three, but they talked about that is the furthest distance is between the mind and the heart, or something along those lines. I'm probably getting it wrong, so I apologize, but I know it came from one of those three. Don't think it was Dan, but he is the vice voice, so I'm give him a little credit. But it was probably Aaron or Mary. But when we're able to look at the wording, promise, that resonates so much more with so many people than a goal, and trying to achieve a goal. Because a lot of people, they say, and we're coming up on that time of year, January 1st is right around the corner. What's going to happen? Everyone's going to make a goal to lose 15 pounds. The gyms are going to be packed. And guess what? Come February, it's going to be a ghost town. And people only lost 5 pounds and they didn't meet their goals because they didn't make a promise. Or maybe they did. But maybe their word, instead of a promise, it should have been goal. Maybe they put more emphasis on that word. So it's amazing to look at that. But finding those words that really resonate within your soul and your heart, helps you also find your passions. Because like I'm sitting here looking at the camera and I'm going, while I was talking earlier, I was like, man, I'm getting kind of misty-eyed talking about these amazing people not wanting to dilute their stories just because of the impact they've made on me. And that is something I want to do. And, even in my company culture, in my community at ProSense, I talk about do what you say you're going to do and do it in a timely manner. Deliver bad news as quickly as you deliver good news, because it's not personal, it's business. And when you give someone bad news, they have the opportunity to pivot on a business decision that will allow them to keep moving forward. And because of that, you've now given them the opportunity to succeed, as opposed to thinking you're going to hurt the relationship because you were not able to deliver. And when you're able to hold that true, you're able to move so many more things forward. Because I've told some of my best clients, you've looked at my media kit, you've seen my client list. Can you imagine telling the director of Walt Disney World that you cannot do something, even though you were brought in, saying, I cannot do that, but immediately following up with, I have a solution, I have a contact. If you will allow me to reach out to him, I'll get this solved for you. What weight does that carry? And are even having two solutions and allowing them to make a choice. That right there gave me more power and respect in that organization than I could have ever imagined. Is because I said I cannot do it, but I didn't come empty-handed. I came with a solution. But I knew that they had a job and a business to run, and I was not going to interfere in it. I was going to say, this is what I can do, this is what I cannot do. I owned what I can do, and I owned what I cannot do. And that is perseverance, is because I was able to feed my passion. And now I play golf with the guy. But anyways, this has been an absolutely amazing conversation. I was kind of worried about it, but this has been really, really good. And thank you everyone for hopping on. So I will hopefully have this recorded on YouTube, and I'll have everyone a link. You'll need to use your emails that I have for you to access it. I don't think there's a password. If there is, I'll make sure that you have that. But yes, Teresa.
I just had one last thought, that it's interesting you said that about the open cycles and perseverance and how they tie together, because I was listening to a podcast this morning too, and kind of the idea of, I don't like doing things like in school. I was an A student. Like it wasn't because of my parents saying, oh, you have to make good grades. It was just like I made A's, and that was not an option. It's just the pressure I put on myself, and that's kind of how I operate. And so I've had to move away from that perfection. And what I was listening to the effect of, like, my B minus might be totally seen as an A by somebody else. And like just needing to get it done and understanding what areas for me are the non-negotiable A levels that I will deliver at this level, but other things I can let go and relax a little bit. And understanding the difference and when those stakes are higher, and also just the pushing myself that what I think is an A might be a C plus to somebody else, and I need to really step it up. And so that's where having other people to mirror or reflect back or evaluate and listening to that helps. And so becoming the architect, stepping into that, opens more cycles. And in that phase of trying to close some cycles and open others, and really discerning, and like Cynthia said, maybe instead of goals, making a promise or a commitment I'm gonna take that more heavily before I commit to something. Because sometimes with a goal, like, oh, I said that, but I didn't hit it, that's okay. I didn't get this thing done at home that I wanted to, but whatever.
Yeah.
So just sometimes that helps think through more seriously, what am I willing to commit to, and which things can I just like, they need to get done so they can close the cycle
Mhm.
or pause for a later time frame.
Yeah.
That just kind of helps me think through prioritizing and when to do which piece.
Yeah, absolutely. Cynthia.
Yeah, one quick thing before we close as I'm listening to this A player, Teresa, is congratulations on your TEDx. I can't wait to see it, but I've
Thank
heard
you.
so
It
many
was
amazing
fun.
things.
It was
Awesome
an
to you,
amazing
girl.
experience.
Way to literally set a goal, make a promise, and overshoot it in a tremendous way. Super
Thank
job.
you.
Yeah,
Thank
very
you.
cool.
That was not something on my bucket list, but I get to check it off when it wasn't even on there. So
Yeah.
kind of cool.
Well,
Very cool.
one of the things that you were talking about there, Teresa, and it's a great segue into next week. So his next week's law is the law of the caterpillar. Some reason this law hasn't resonated with me as much as some of the other laws or the principles, but I was thinking about it today because I have 2 young children, and it's amazing what they learn at school and some of the big words that I had forgotten, like chrysalis. So as you think about the law and look at it going into next week's conversation, think about the law. Think about the life cycle of a caterpillar, from a caterpillar to a chrysalis to a butterfly. And in every single one of those, there are obstacles, there are changes, and there are metamorphoses that we all go through. And there, in that particular one, there's 3 distinct cycles. So think about that as we go into that, and think about where you're at in your cycle. And it's not that there's not a wrong. There is absolutely not a wrong, because as we go into 2 weeks from now, the law of the straight line, they almost identify 3 distinct areas. I think there's actually 4. I can't remember, so we'll find out in a couple weeks. But in every one of these, you have to really focus in on the chapter and outline what that chapter looks like, as we've talked about, doing an autopsy of our successes versus our failures, and whiteboarding whether you're a whiteboarder or just make notes of it, put down what the goods, the bads, all those things, and talk about it with other people. But think about that as we go into it, because next week there is a metamorphosis that each and every single person in the alliance, no matter whether you're an 8-figure earner, a 10-figure earner, or a 5-figure earner, every single person, without question, is in one of those stages. Because even those that we may think are a caterpillar, the most beautiful caterpillar that's out there, they may think that they're, or a butterfly, they may still view themselves as a caterpillar, and they haven't reached that chrysalis point. So do not lose sight of that, because our journey is never over. It's just an evolution. And I think that's a good segue into next week.
I just have a quick question.
Mhm.
Not related at all. Who's going to Nashville? Anyone going to Nashville? Okay,
I will not
cool.
be there.
I'm trying to get there. I want to go really badly, but I'm just not sure if the finances are in the cards. So I'm trying to get there. So I'm watching, just curious who from the group will be there.